Hey everybody, I'm testing out some new AirPods. Wanted to know if you can hear me.
Crystal clear.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to launch things tonight for Robert, who has generously agreed to talk to everybody about how he sets up complex options, something that most of us do not do and would probably benefit from learning about. Options alone are often scary and more complicated than most people give them credit for being, with all the Greeks and stuff that I admittedly don't know enough about, even for single sides. But one of the things that I learned about in power trading, from Bear to his credit, was how to sell against options that I already owned to try to make them free as quickly as possible and to derive income off of my long positions. So, Robert, I'm going to turn it over to you. And this is being recorded, so anybody who listens to it will have an opportunity to enjoy it later.
Sounds good. Everybody hear me okay?
I do.
Sounds good. Well, hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, just like Kid said, just been learning more and more about options over the years, and I'll go share a little bit about my background, my history, and then so I think it kind of plays into maybe more my style and how I got to where I am, because I think one thing that I've recognized over my time is just that everybody has different style of trading, and so certain styles may not fit certain people, and so this works for me, and it works because of other commitments or obligations that I have, and and my style. So yeah. So the all right, everybody see my PowerPoint? At least one person.
I can't record the screen, just letting y'all know. So if anyone can record it, that'd be nice.
Okay.
I'm driving right now, so my bad.
No problem. Just want to make sure at least somebody can see the screen, the PowerPoint that I have up.
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So, yeah, so I love pizza. My favorite food. Pineapples do not belong on it. And this is my favorite pizza, by the way. So this is called the Uncle Jerry's Sweet Sting. So it's a cup and star pepperoni drizzled with homemade habanero infused hot honey sweet sting. So this is my most favorite pizza that I've had, and it does not involve pineapple. So that's for you, QR. So a little bit about me. I started working for UPS back in about 2001, and ended up moving, started off administratively, ended up moving into sales, left there in 2009, started a company with business partner. And so we provide analytics and data to shippers to help them manage their distribution. And so just, provide insights to what their transportation network looks like, and help them to make informed decisions about their supply chain. So I started trading out of COVID. So I was sharing with a couple of the guys that we had dinner with on Saturday. Met up with DD Rolls, Crater, Neil, and Gov. So I was sharing about my very first options trade that I made was Boeing, and so I bought them basically on the first Monday after the February expiry, of the COVID crash. And I bought, so basically, let's see, right here at this arrow on the top left, basically my very first options trade in a matter of like 2 weeks went 10x, and I woke up one morning and my trade from $3,500 was $40,000, and I panicked and I sold because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to manage it. So great start. That trade then went on to be, probably about a $500,000 trade that I never realized because I sold out of it. And so that's kind of my first experience. So certainly, you start to think that that's how every trade works. Wow, I'm a smart guy. I could do this every day. I could roll this into really big trades. And so what do? You size up into your next trade, and then eventually it doesn't work. And so this was the end of March. Basically through COVID, that first month or so, I don't know, made about, maybe $120,000, $150,000 in my first month, and basically blew it all in 2 days. And so, you certainly kind of, you learn a lot from that experience. And, I've repeatedly heard stories of people that have done that, and some people have recovered and some people haven't. And I was determined that that I could do it, but I needed to really get disciplined and smart about how I started to trade. That certainly took some time because emotionally, losing that much money in 2 days is a bit of a blow to your ego, and a bit of a blow to your account that you thought that you were so brilliant. And by the way, I also just want to say, like, I hope that you guys see too, I really try to be as transparent as possible about my trades. Like I definitely get them wrong, and I definitely try to be open about my process that I go through. But I find that you only get out of something of what you're willing to do to be vulnerable and be honest. And so yeah, I suck. I suck sometimes. I make a bad trade. And I think, like some of the things that I like to hear is like, okay, like you missed out on a trade, or you made a bad trade, just move on to the next trade. And so, I try to, I hope you guys see that. I try to be pretty open and honest about my entries and my exits and my process of, what I'm going through. And so, I was even talking to GD Rolls and Crater a little bit on Saturday. I said, I hope, sometimes when I'm kind of posting the process of what I'm going through, it's not too much, but like what I'm trying to share with you guys is just, this is the process that I go through. As I kind of analyze, where we're at, and, making adjustments to positions, and, scaling in and out and things like that. So if you were around in Sam's room, this was one of my favorite screenshots that I ever captured, which was theta, gamma, etc., all meaningless. And so, sometimes, we talked about the fade from, from being in Sam's room. There's some things that get posted, and, some of you around Bear talked about, kind of his process with DME, and, I think he made some really great calls out of that trade, kind of knowing where things were at that time. And, so I knew that I needed to learn more about it, and I by no means am an expert at it. I'm just going to share with you where I'm at in my process. And so certainly if there's others that are, further along or more experienced in regards to, theta and gamma and the Greeks, I'm certainly, open to have anybody else chime in that would like to. For me, for the most part, I'm using deltas to try and manage my trades. So I just create some rules that have worked over time. So for me, I view your strike as just an expression of a position. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're, that we need to get to that price, or I use the deltas because for me, it's been the truest form of like checking myself of where I think things are. So typically, if I say, like if I think that a move could happen and maybe it would take, say, a week for that move to happen, what my common expression of putting like on a position would be like adding, so if I was like say 5 days out is how long I think that position could move or take to move, I'll commonly add 3 to 5 days onto that, and just to be safe, or as my check at my balance is I'll try to buy like a 35 delta on an entry. So for my first, say my first scale in, and I like to scale in, over time and price, not 100% at one level. Maybe if it's like a smash and grab type of thing, maybe it's one of those, but that's more of like a quicker type of move. So for me, my style, I still run my company, so I'm still pretty involved day to day on that. So I can't always be managing, sitting at the desk or sitting in front of my screens to manage a position. So you probably noticed most of my positions tend to be, I would say like 4 to 15 days out. And I commonly just trade the S&P. And for me, that's just because I've really tried to get into just getting very I'm trying to master one thing, or just trying to get very good at it. And many of you are much better, like really, really good. The commentary that we hear daily from from Aaron, Nara, and Neil, and Gov, and Smooth, like the commentary that we get, on a daily basis, like is just phenomenal. So intraday, like I defer to all those guys, and that's, I certainly use them for kind of like tweaking positions and where my entries are and that. But again, for me, my view is more like where are we going, on a 1 to 3 week out, basis. So again, for my entries, usually scale in, 20-25% of whatever type of position that I want to build, on my first entry, and just scale in over time. So certain, times of day that I like to hit, or end of day or beginning day, the euro close, kind of in those areas. So again, a 35 delta for me has been kind of the most consistent entry point that I've chosen. So when I pull up the options pane, and I'll slide a window over here in 1 second. So if I was to go, I'll just pull up the May expiry for the S&P. So I've got the deltas all loaded into, the option chain. So it just depends I use Thinkorswim for charting, but I use Schwab for trading. So, sorry if I don't know what Thinkorswim looks like, but I assume that they probably have a lot of the same stuff. So, so if I was to look at a position and say, okay, well, what starting point should I use? I pulled up again the May expiry. Here's your 35 delta, so that would be a 4,200 entry, and then on the put side, you'd be at like 40.90. Certainly, you can switch over to SPY or QQQ or whatever instrument that you want to use. So let's see. So on SPY, you've got your 30, your 34.5 delta there is at the strike of 419. And then on the put side, you're at about 407.50. So again, that's just kind of what's worked for me. You could certainly, I think what I've learned is just like, through a lot of my time of trading in the Igloo, was just that like these 20 deltas are really, they're just like, they're priced for perfection. So maybe you think that it can get there, but you have to have really great entries and really great exits. So, okay, so again, May here, a 20 delta takes you to about the 399 puts. And then on the upside takes you to about the 424. So, I mean, if you start to measure out what you think a move could look like, we've talked about a couple times, we've talked about 4,300, talked about 4,350. So you start to map out like, whether that's the May expiry, or I kind of lean towards giving yourself, again, a little bit more time for it to work out. But, again, let's just say for that thesis that the 4350, thesis. So, if you go here at a 420 strike, and this is as of an entry today, that would be worth roughly $15 plus whatever time is left on that. So, I mean, you're looking at, 4.5x as the max, return for something like that. If you slide down to something like a 20 delta, you're at the value on that would be worth about $9. So you get 6x versus you get about 4.5x at 420. So to me, it's a much safer bet to go closer to the money and take something that has a little bit lower of a return. And the other thing that I noted in this presentation that I put together too is that I look at the core position as like an anchor. So if that anchor is weak, you're not in a position of strength to sell shorter dated premium against it. So if you were to stretch yourself a little bit and you were to go to say the 425 strike, if you wanted to sell something that was shorter dated against it, so let's say we'll go out to like next Friday. Okay, so if you wanted to go out to say on next Friday and you wanted to sell premium against it, well, if you're at the 425 for your long strike for say 526, you're only on here. You're only able to sell about a 7 delta like max. But if you slide up to say the 420 strike, or even like the if you went to the 420 or the 415, if you went with the 415, you could always sell next. You could always sell next Friday's, 420 against it. So I'll go into my presentation a little bit about just some the ground, not the ground rules, but different types of option strategies that you could play with, and you'll see how as we kind of play with some of the deltas and the numbers. If you really have to, I'd still rather sell a 10 delta if I'm going to get something out of it. But you really start to get into deltas that are 3.5-7%. You're not really extracting a lot of premium out of it. So I like to, if anything, I like to have something on to take advantage of some of the decay. But I like to maintain like a ratio or a structure of like either a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 like type of ratio. So I'll get into that a little bit more as we go in. So that all makes sense, or does anybody have any questions on that? All right. We're going to the next slide. So I think most of us are probably just familiar with common calls and puts, right? So you buy, this was as of I took all these screenshots 2 days ago, so obviously the price has moved quite a bit today, from these strikes. But this was I was pulling at 5 day to expiry quote here. So what most people would be familiar with would be just you buy a you buy a strike that's 5 days out, say 1% out of the money. It's a 36 delta, and that'll move at a rate. I'll have some screenshots here in a couple slides, and I'll go into each of these a little bit more detailed. Then you have like a vertical call or vertical put. Those have the same expiration or same date of expiration. So you would have your long, your short at a given strike, and then your profit is limited to the width of the spread between the two strikes. So like in this case, your entry would have been $14.30, and your profit would be limited to $40. This was set up with a 37 and a 20 delta, selling against it with the same day. Calendar calls and puts. So you have varying expiries. So your buy would be say 10 days to expiration. Your sell would be 5 days to expiration, and they would either be, if it's just a straight calendar call, then it would be usually at the same strike. If you have different strikes, then it's a little bit different of a structure. But you can see here, your cost would be $20 on that. So you would pay $44 for your 4110 for 2 weeks out, and then you would take back a credit of $23.75 for next Tuesdays, as an example. Then diagonals. So that's where you're going to buy with one date, sell another date, but it's at different strikes. So remember, on the calendar calls or puts, it's at the same strike. With a diagonal, it's at different strikes. So again, in this example, I did a 10-day out, 40 delta, and then sold a 5-day out at a 20 delta, and so that was $29. Generally, create this spread. So the premium is like $30 on this one, but you try to create a width that's equal to roughly the premium that you pay on here, because if this blows out by the time that you get to 5.2 and say you're at 4,200 by by that date, that's going to start to bring the spread on this a little bit down. Your ideal strike to be at on 5-2 is to be right at 41.50. So this decays completely, and then this is worth kind of maximum value at that date. So, and then you've got iron butterflies. Some people put on a structure that's more of a like a 1-1-1-1, which is kind of like an iron condor. I prefer my my iron butterflies to be like a 1-2-1 structure. So you're buying one strike, selling at a -2, and then you're buying on a further dated strike. So the aim on this is that you're targeting a specific price at a specific expiry. So if we're kind of in a pinned zone or range or a magnet to a certain price, that's where this strategy comes in. Commonly, maybe where I would use that is I posted a couple times, like at the close with, say, less than maybe 10 minutes to go. You just want the risk reward to be right, like on these, because if you're picking if your spread is say on a butterfly is 5 points wide, but you're buying it with 15 or 20 minutes to go, unless there's really something going on at that strike, pinning to a 5-point range, or sorry, a 10-point range, because you'd have your long on both sides. Pinning to a specific range, but trying to hit an exact number with 15 minutes to go is kind of tough. It can work, and you could also leg into this. So if you thought that 41.50, for example, was going to be the pin on 5-2, maybe you're buying the 41.40s, and then as we get up towards that strike, you go, okay, it really looks like we're going to close here. Well, then you can put on these other two legs, and you can scale into it. But for me, I think sometimes you can get a little too cute with some of the options, and sometimes you just got to keep it simple. So I would say, if you're in the 41.40s and you think that we're going to pin at 51.50, just take the $10, whenever it gets to that price. However, if you really think that there's a dynamic that's going on that's really different that day, then certainly put that on. Like I said, usually without a lot of time. That's what I've seen, at least that works for me. So an iron condor, similar to butterfly, but you're actually giving yourself more of a range for the close. So whereas like with an iron butterfly, you're actually trying to hit like a specific price. With an iron condor, you're actually trying to hit a range. So like in this case, he said, okay, I think it'll close between 41.10 and 41.50, and so that's your optimal price. Again, I'll visualize this on some other slides. And then one of the other things, if some of you remember Bubba from TPCR, he would do these double diagonals with earnings a lot of times. So you're trying to extract the shorter dated premium, and he would create like this tent pole like type of structure, which I'll go into in a little bit. So basically, you're buying a longer dated strike, selling whatever that week is. So like in this example, I ran Meta a couple days ago, and so this was just an example. So I think the price was, when I was running this, was like 210. So you're buying the 200 puts for May. You're selling this week's 190, which was like a 20 delta. So your spread on this side is limited to roughly $5. And then you're doing the same on the call side. Again, you're selling selling a 20 delta, you're buying a 36 on a longer dated, and the value of that spread was about 420. So your total spread cost was about 926. So again, the goal on that one is you want to close either at 230 or you want to close at 190, so that this is worth 0, and then that this is worth 0, and that these will still have time value left on them because they're longer dated, but you're trying to extract the premium out of those the shorter dated. That's your aim or your goal. So, like in this case, I use this site. If I can find it. I use this site. It's called options profit calculator. So you can throw in your symbol a couple days ago, and then you can put in your strikes. So you've got different expirations. You throw in your strikes, and then it models it for you. And so that's what I did here. Was I did again what most people I think are familiar with would be just straight calls or straight puts. So you buy a call, 1% out of the money. It's this is a 36 delta at the time, and so here's what the price movement would look like over time. The highest being whatever that current date was, and then as you move through time, there's decay in that. So you have to keep up with the rate of decay because there's premium value in that strike with time value that's on it. So I think when I did this quote, I think we were at 40.70. So you could see that. So what do we close at? So today we close at 41.35. So let's see. So yeah, so like this one would be worth about $48 now as of today, and a couple of days ago is at say 24. So it's about a double now. Next option or next option strategy that I looked at was the vertical call. So again, 41.10, 41.50. Spread value is about 14.30. Today, that would be worth about $24. So went from 14 to 24, but a little bit less risk than just your straight call that you had. So this one went from 24 to 48. This one went from 14 to 24. And then this one is this is a calendar call. So let's see. So this entry would have been $20.25. And today at expiry, that would be worth $23.50. So you see, I mean, that one only moved about 10%. So these are a lot more slow moving, and you're really working to extract premium over time is really the goal with that. Again, I was just pulling some generic. I was just pulling 1% out of the money. Was just kind of what I was modeling here a couple of days ago. So the diagonals. So again, you're looking at different strikes for different dates. So this one would have been $29 a couple of days ago, and today it'd be worth about $40. So yeah, so a move of about $29 to $40. And then let's see, what did I do on that one? I think this one I just got. Yeah, that's what I did. So this one I modeled a 40 delta versus a 20, and then on this one I did a 35 versus an 18. So again, kind of keeping that 2-to-1 ratio in place. So $23 was the entry, and today that would be worth about $33. That one's moved up about, say, 50%, 40% in value, whereas this one's moved up about 33% in value. So I'll just move at different rates depending on what the structure is that's in place. Then this is an iron butterfly. Entry there would have been 780. Today that would be worth about 950. So that one's moved, say, about 20%. Obviously, we've had a pretty sizable move from 4070. So if you get 20%, maybe that's okay. On your strategy, maybe you're looking for lower risk. So that's, I think, what some of us have talked about, whether it's here or other places I've heard, is a lot of people talk about these other strategies kind of being too risky. In fact, I would argue, for the most part, most option strategies are actually less risky than just straight calls. I actually think just doing straight calls is actually the most, or straight puts, either one is actually carries the most amount of risk. So I tend to like these more because I can't always just be right in front of my computer, because I'm still doing my other job. So iron condor. So you're trying to hit. Sorry, let's see. This chart is not correct, so please disregard this chart. This is actually different. This is actually more that Bubba style. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't chart that correctly. So I'm just
That's Bubba's double tent.
Yeah, so this is the double tent. So again, use this for events or earnings, things like that. So I played around. Actually, I had three different kind of styles that I went with, or structures. So this first one, when I modeled it, so when I commonly would do it, I was doing a month out, and then you're taking this week's expiry. But you see that the structure is not necessarily symmetrical. But in this example, so the premium that you paid was $926, and when you model that out, see how wide of a band you got on kind of a profit target. I mean, it gives you a really wide range in terms of profit. Hitting a range of profit. However, this wasn't so symmetrical, so I did play around with some different options. So let's see. Yes, I had two other options. So this one I did was shorter dated, still the 519, but I played around more with the tent to get them to be symmetrical. You notice this tent was a little bit lower. This was me just using straight deltas to build the position. Whereas on this one, I really just tried to work to get these to be symmetrical. And again, I used that. I used the options. I used this site to kind of build out the structure of what that would look like when I was building it. Let me see if I still have it in the recent. Yeah. So you have it built here, but then as you go and you adjust your strikes, then you can update it, and then you can see how it changes the symmetry of the of where kind of your profit zone is. So I modeled two different examples. Now I think when Bubba would do it, he would do I think 2 months out. So I did another one where I did did 2 months out to expiry. So again, just with the focus of like building it symmetrically within the chart builder. So on that one, you see that the spreads are actually a little bit different. So this was a $15 spread, whereas the call spread was actually $20. Still similar in terms of the deltas that you're selling. You're still selling the 20 deltas, but in terms of the longs, you were it wasn't necessarily a $10 spread on both sides. So and then you could see what the profit calculator looked like. So if your entry was 16.14, then it had at expiry kind of your most ideal strike again would be 230, which is equal to this strike, or it would have been 190. So at 190, your value would have been about 23.80, and then at 230, it would have been about 24.80 or so. So at $24 off of a $16. So it's got a upside potential of about 50%. And you see where you would start to lose money as if it blew through 255. So that was what are we at today? So we're at 238 today. So according to this, value would be about $18. That's from 1614. So I think this would actually be as of open. So your closing price is probably somewhere around $19 or $20. If I was to rerun this, it would be 19 or 20. But you see how it gets to expiry, and that the decay. You keep extracting the premium out of these shorter dated, short legs that you wrote. And even if it goes through 230, it's still okay, because this will expire worthless. This will hold some of its value because it's 2 months out. This will be up because it'll have time value in it, because that's now further in the money. And this one will be worth whatever the whatever the net difference is between the strike that you wrote and whatever the price is. So if, say, tomorrow it closed at 238.50, this would be worth 850. This would be worth a lot more. This would be worth a little bit less, and this would be worth 0. And so the net result of that is, if we get to say 238 if tomorrow, it'd be worth about $21 from 16. So those are some of the different kind of options that I put together, just kind of doing a review of where some of them are. Now, Rich talked about kind of learning to scale into positions too. So I think that's where you can also use really a combination of, if you're going to buy a just a straight up call or straight up put, your other option then is always then selling premium at a major resistance level to see if if it's going to hold at that level. Give me a second, I got to grab some water. So, as I was saying, so if you say hypothetically you were to buy these 4110s last week, and you got to today, and we had this big move, well, then selecting your leg that you're going to write, it really just depends on then kind of what your strategy is. You really could play it a lot of different ways. So as I again, hypothetically, let's just say let's use that same example of you went long the 5-2 or the May 2nd 4100. Let's get a quote to see what those are at and where the delta's at. Okay, so I'm sorry, I think it was 4110s. So 4110s closed at $42, and the delta's 68. So what I would look to do is like, okay, do you think that the move's done, or do you think that we'll get continuation move, but you want to put on some form of a hedge overnight to protect against a little bit of a pullback, or to protect against earnings? Maybe Amazon's earnings were going to be poor. You think, you have a bias towards that will still go up, but you want to like protect yourself a little bit. So that's at a 69 delta. So here's kind of maybe what an option could be is, so you're still long the 5-2 4110s, but let's go and look at tomorrow, and let's look at maybe like a delta in the low 20s. So that's 40 cents, 4170. Yeah, so yeah, probably look at something like that. 40, yeah, I'd probably go like 4160 or 4165 as an example. So you're selling then a 24 delta, so you've got about that like 3-to-1 ratio overnight. You still have something's happened with my quotes today where it's not giving me the full price in here for some reason, but we've got it down below. So the value then would be $36.80. So I think we said it was like $42. So you're taking back a credit of about $5.20 on the 4160s. And then you can manage that, at the open. You can just let that kind of go throughout the day and see where things go. You see, okay, so what's the worst case scenario? So, worst case scenario obviously is we open up tomorrow and we're down big. We're down 50, 75 points or something, which, I don't know why that would happen, but just building in. After today, I guess we should expect anything. So your estimate then would be worth about $13 then. So it went from $37 at close to maybe it opens around like $11 to $13 tomorrow morning. However, if you just kept your 41 10s open and we open down, say, I'm sorry. I don't know if that pulled correctly. Let me just double check. $41.10. Yeah, so, I don't know why, but this is not, oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So your closing price then would be say $37 after you take back your credit at the close. So if we open down 50 points, your value would probably be around like $10 to $13 on that spread. So you'd lose say $23. Now let's go with the other example of if you had kept this open just on its own without taking a hedge, and you'd be down $28. So, you have that $5 premium that you wrote that basically would act as a little bit of a hedge. You could get, it really just depends. You could probably get as aggressive as you want. You can write it at the money for overnight. So again, like if we went back to the 4110 and we were to say, well, I just think overnight, maybe we open flat, or we have event vol with this, with Amazon's earnings. So you write a 4135 or you write a 4140, right? So let's see what the 4140 looks like. Okay, so now, you walk away at the end of the day and your premium would be $29 if we open down 50 points. So you lose 16 points. Whereas if you just kept your puts open, if you left your calls open overnight without the hedge, you'd lose 28 points. So, it's kind of 28 versus 16. So you're putting a little bit of a protection on overnight. Or like if next week we go into FOMC, maybe you have a lean or a bias, heading in on a longer dated position, but you don't like the event vol of FOMC. You can always write, either further out of the money, you can go to 25 delta, or you go completely neutral. You go at 50 and just try to extract even just that initial, the initial pop, of whatever color tie Powell's wearing, and we pop up 30 points down 30 points, and then we go back flat. Well, then then you sell your premium, and then let that the initial event vol wear off, and then extract a little bit of the premium out of it that way, and then if you can play along and you want to have a bias for whatever direction that we're going based on what he says, then you can extract a little bit of the premium out of the event. So just some different ideas. So really wish this was quoting correctly up here, because it's kind of hard to model. I think I'm getting like the single strikes, but the problem is when I go build it as a spread, I've been having this happen the last couple of days, is it's not coming in cleanly. Yeah, when it's building it. But I was going to go through a couple days ago.
Yeah, Robert, what was the site again that you're getting these percentages from?
Yeah, it is Options Profit Calculator.
Okay.
So I'll put a link in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Anybody wants to go there.
Good to see you're using SSE too.
Yep. There, I put it in. I threw that in the chat. So, no, I would say it's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. I mean, sometimes you just have to use your head a little bit. If you look at it and if it doesn't seem like the numbers, trying to think of an example. I mean, maybe when IV, if implied volatility is a lot higher, say on FRC or something like that. Like I wouldn't even honestly try to model that in there, because the IV expansion sometimes just it throws things off so much. Now there is a section in there that you can actually put. There is a section on there that you can put with the IV changes, and honestly, I haven't been able to play around with that too much. I mean, yeah, maybe somebody else can figure that out, but I haven't been able to master that in any way that is meaningful or useful to help me. But there could be, yeah, I mean, so there's certain things that I've modeled at times that it doesn't really make sense. So, you just have to use your head when you look at it. If if you're looking at this and everything looks flat, I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, so let me do. I'm gonna do. I can think of one that at times hasn't always necessarily. Let's just go with. Go 4150. Okay, so I threw in the 4150, which is 15 points out of the money. The range that it gives you is just going to be a range from, it looks like roughly 7,500 points lower, 7,500 points higher, and it'll model that out over to expiration. If you wanted to like expand your range go a little bit, so I've been talking about 4350. So if you look here, once you get into like these higher ranges, I haven't always necessarily found that this is accurate. So like if we were to wake up tomorrow and we were at, find something that's fairly flat. If we were at say 4,300. Now I do understand we would then be 150 points in the money. So they're saying in theory there's 20 points of theta built into that for roughly 3 weeks, versus if you hold on to that at expiry, it's only worth whatever the difference is between the strike and the the price of wherever the price of the quote is. So there are times though that I found where this is like it's very flat, and it's not necessarily, I think, accurately representing what the theta or time value is, or kind of the time decay that's built into that premium, that's left in that premium of time to accurately represent that. This one doesn't look too extreme, but like I said, if you look at it and it starts to look like a little flat or it doesn't seem to make sense, don't take this always necessarily as gospel. It's something you gotta think through and just make sure that it makes sense. So, anybody have any questions?
Hey, Rob, do you have a place where you basically learned all the calculus?
No. Are you saying like resources that I use for learning more about it?
Okay.
No. So going back to my story a little bit, and having that big like the big like 2-day blow up that I talked about, my Kevin moment. I think I realized that like over time, doing the same thing that I had always done, which was just buying these like naked, I call them naked calls or naked puts, or just straight up calls and puts, like weren't always necessarily going to work with me or work for me, and they weren't going to work for me if I can't constantly be like managing the positions. And I think my style is I tend to probably, I probably wait a little bit longer. Like I'm not as quick on the trigger or as disciplined. Like I like to look at like a daily close and not get like faked out and then have, FOMO that I, made the wrong call. So I like to look at like, okay, what's the daily setup look like for this move? If I'm taking a move that's like 4 to 15 days out, like if I enter into a position, I like to like make sure that I give it proper time to develop. So, using the selling premium, as an option. And one of the reasons that I like SPX specifically is because you could get really, with everyday expiries, you can get really specific about choosing your expirations and, crossing it with different, there might be different reasons. So, you got FOMC next week, you got CPI the following week. So you have some event vol, built into those, into those days specifically. So, are you either going to try to use it? You can use that as your long date for an anchor because you know that like you'll have a little bit less decay on a move against you because you have some event vol that'll like hold on to onto some of the premium in that strike, and maybe you sell against on some other day, or for a specific reason. So the reason that I specifically like SPX is because if I'm buying something that's 8 days out, then I can open a position against it to sell premium 3 days out, and then if I like want to, then I can move that to 2 days out, or I can move it to 4 days out, or I can, you can just tweak that a lot. And with expiries every $5, kind of same with SPY, you can get really detailed about like what your objectives are. So, we started to talk about different strategies to, say with this FRC. So again, I'm disappointed it's not modeling this out the last couple of days for me. I've never had that happen, but like it could be. I was actually kind of playing around with some different strategies a couple of days ago, and I know I had posted that in the room. Actually, let me see if I can pull up those screenshots because that might be more helpful than just referring to it. Give me just a second. Okay, so I had posted this in the chat yesterday. So I was this is a way that I've actually learned of kind of like a synthetic short or synthetic long. So, like in this case, the implied volatility for the shorter dated expiry was a lot higher than the longer dated. And so what you'll find is, especially when you have like trading halts, is that the premium on the shorter dated actually exceeds the premium of the longer dated. So in this case, it's $15, and it's written right now or quoted right now as a debit. However, I've had cases where it gets inverted. So your shorter dated premium should never really be higher than your longer dated premium, because a longer dated should have some time value built into that. So in this strategy, I was throwing out like stink bid offers of like 5, 8, 10 cents, because like what I've normally found is like once IV like settles down a little bit is usually I guess just watching it long enough, like I've seen like when things slow down a little bit, usually you're getting quotes at about like 30 cents. So if you can get a fill at like 5, 8, 10 cents, somewhere in that range, you have like pretty good risk reward for like getting an entry that potentially you have the opportunity to once IV settles down and everything kind of comes back within range. This was the quote that I got when IV was high and things were really spiking all around. Just a second, I'm going to see if I have the other screenshot. Okay, yeah, here it is. So here's the example of, so this week, $3. Now, again, this is just the midpoint of the bid. Now, the bid and the ask is really wide. There's no volume. So, maybe getting a fill was going to be tough. But again, I was throwing out like 3 cents on 300 contracts. So it was like, basically $1,000 position that I was throwing out an offer on there, and I just had all different various strikes at different or different spreads or different values that I had thrown out there, and I didn't end up getting filled on any of those, but I did get one the afternoon prior, which would have been, what was that, Tuesday afternoon, I think. And so that was a $1. It was a $1 selling the $1 call in May, and I'm long the August. Now that one's just kind of hovered around current value, because unless we actually get down closer to $1, the goal is you're trying to extract the premium out of the shorter dated. But I looked at that as like a lotto, because your worst case scenario is your shares get called away from, or, your position gets called away from you by them executing the short position on you, and you end up short the position, and you still have your long for August, which in theory should have some time value. I've had that happen a couple times, and your worst case scenario is you end up just having to execute your longer dated, and then it's basically you look at it as like a lotto. So it has gone to zero, just because you could get really cute. You could try to offload the shares that you end up getting shorted or assigned to you, and you could try to sell those legs separately, or you could even try to like roll into a different strike too. So hopefully that's not too confusing. So on this FRC, like even something I've been playing around with, trying to get a fill the last couple of days, I've thrown out some offers. So it was like 250. So our closing price today was 619. Again, it makes it a lot harder not having these quotes. Oh, give me a second. I'm gonna drag in another. So if you see, so we closed at 620. So if you wanted to go, short, say the $6 strike, you'd have to pay 48 cents. If you look at this option though, when the implied volatility spikes, or even if I went to like say next week, because this only has a day left on it, it was a little bit better yesterday morning when we kept getting the halt. But again, if you look at next week, so you got to pay $1.80 premium just on like an at the money. So you're paying 30% premium at the money. However, if I went to say like a $6, $3.50, $1 spread, so basically your goal would be as close to $3.50 as possible, but still be below $6. You pay 38 cents. Now, when the implied volatility spikes and you start to see the some people start throwing out really crazy, crazy bids on even like the 350. This I've seen. So if you look at it like right now when IV's settled down, you could see what the true value is of this iron butterfly. So now you think like, okay, worst case scenario, it moves away from me, but after IV settles down, I could still close out of this maybe at 30 to 40 cents. So that's kind of like the settled down value. So if it's 30 to 40 cents is your kind of palm value when we're not having halts, well then why wouldn't you just throw out some offers for 10 or 15 cents, because the risk reward is there. That okay, you pay 10 cents. Well, you've got a 3-to-1 you got a 3-to-1 ratio then. And worst case scenario, then you sell a third and you get your cost basis out, and then maybe you can have a remaining 2/3 position to see if we actually do get a move below $6, hoping that it doesn't go below 350. However, if you get into like next week and you probably still have a lot of like event vol still built up, that it won't just flush. Well, here, if we compare, let's compare like week versus week. So yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty similar. Like if you look at this is 1 day out, obviously, because this is expiring tomorrow. So 35 cents is the value versus like 38, but we'll see what this starts to look like tomorrow. But it'd be interesting, as we get closer, if you close down at 550, well, now you just, now you closed you made 50 cents on that position that you bid, 10 cents or 15 cents on. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of different, even flipping it and looking at calls too. It's sometimes you can actually get different fills on different sides of the phone depending on what people are bidding. But there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different strategies, and I think that sometimes, again, the certain strategies could be a little scarier to people because you don't necessarily understand it. But I think, like for me, I kind of like more a nerd where I think about this stuff in my free time and like to think about what the shape of some of these movements and how can I try to extract as much premium out of it as I can to help bring my cost basis down and bring the time value into my favor. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of different ways you can try to work your position. Anybody else have any other questions?
That's good insight, Rob. Definitely a good way to hedge.
Yeah, I think like Richard said, I think just kind of learning as you come into those major resistance levels. Like if I have a say for like the S&P, I mean if I have a thesis that we're going to move, I don't know, 150 points in a direction, but we moved we moved 30 points and we're like at a resistance, and I'm like, okay, well now we got to see if we get through this level of resistance. Well, then I get like a little bit more mildly aggressive, maybe about the strike selection that I choose for premium that I write, because maybe it'll take a couple knocks at that level before it gets through. Well, while that's working, or while that time is eroding for us to work through that level, I can have that position on, as a hedge as time goes on. So maybe I'm not ready to, if we move 30 points, it's great. That's a great start. It just puts you in a more favorable position to sell premium out of a position of strength. But maybe I'm not ready to like close or sell another, leg of my position, but it's a good place to, add in or scale into selling premium, at a level that you recognize might be difficult to get through.
Now, when you do this, can you roll to some other strike?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you can constantly be working that. So, as an example, there was this one morning last week. So I think I had the 41. I think I had the 4120s originally, and then I wrote the 4105s against them at the end of the day. Well, we moved down. It was one of the mornings we moved down like 30 or 35 points or something like that. And that was a morning where Aaron and Smooth and Neil and Gov, we're all like kind of pounding the table on like, okay, we're going to move off this 48 level. Well, so what happened was I wrote the 4105s the night prior for a $4 credit. Well, when we opened, those were $9. So I was in the whole $5 on that position. Now my 4120s were up, I don't know, maybe $12 or something like that. So, but my problem was that the short position or the short position that I wrote was against me $5. But I wasn't quite ready to I wasn't quite ready to exit the position because we hadn't kind of gotten to the point where I was ready to take profits yet. I still wanted some time to see how that was going to work. So what I did was I rolled my 4105s. I actually rolled them up to 4120. So I actually got more aggressive about selling, and I rolled up because that was a morning where we were at I think we closed like the night before at 4175, and then we opened up like 4142 or something like that, 4145, and we took off of the 48 level. But everybody was in agreement that we were gonna, move up that day, or that morning. And so by rolling my strike from the 4105s to 4120s, I basically went to a flat, calendar call. So I think my deltas looked like I was long the 30, like a 36 or 37 delta for originally tomorrow's X3. But by the time that I sold the 4120s for whatever that day was, I think I added one day. That was like 40. It was like a 31 delta. So I only had a spread of about like 6 or 7 delta points. But again, it was like I wasn't quite ready to let my 4120s for Friday go because I still had like 7 or 8 days, to go till expiration. However, I recognized, okay, we're going to be in this move where we could make a move up. So, I mean, people do that in different ways. You can express that by buying shorter dated calls against your longer dated puts. That's one, strategy. The other one is selling premium against it. And in that case, it was, if we were at 41.48, that would have been equal to about 41.25 on SPX that day. So I was basically selling a 1 day to expiry at the money strike. Now, when I rolled that up, I talked about how the night before I sold, it was a $4 premium, but I woke up, it was $9. So I was in the whole $5. But what I did was I ended up rolling that to the 4120s. And I think I took a $5 credit back because I think I sold the 4120s at like $13 or $14. So now all I had to do was work off my $5 of that position to get back to break even. So I know that's kind of, hopefully that makes sense. I know it's kind of hard without seeing it visually, but you can work your positions more aggressively if you think that we're gonna like move up. So your option of not closing out of your position is you could get more aggressive about selling premium at a specific price or a delta that's a little bit more aggressive. You can also sell in the money. You don't even have to sell out of money or at the money. You can actually go in the money too. So again, having the your long leg has to be like healthy and it has to be in good shape. You start getting, you buy you enter at a 35 delta or something like that, and it works down to a 20 delta. Well, my experience has just been like the 20 deltas are really priced for perfection. So you have to have almost everything go right in your position for you to make money on a 20 delta. So I want to be a seller, consistently. I want to be a seller of 20 deltas and below. But you can't do that if you're just buying, if you're just buying 20 deltas, you probably only could sell like a 10 delta for it to even be worth it. But if you're buying 20s, again, I kind of look at that as more you're in kind of more lotto territory. So.
Yeah, that's good. That's always a struggle for me is selling the premium.
Yeah, No, I mean, certainly, I actually recognize, I think my bigger issue with selling premium has been just like the conviction to stay in it longer. Like I actually do very well selling premium, but I close out or I roll out of the position too quickly. So I have more conviction on my longs, and I think like I shared one day, I think it was in our in one of our I don't remember which room it was. I was sharing in one of the rooms, the side rooms, that where I look back, like when I look at the trades that I've made, and I'm like, okay, I sold premium at some certain level, right? And then I close out of it because I'm like, okay, this is kind of like salmon puts, and I close out of my position because now we're coming up to resistance, not necessarily support, but we're coming up to resistance on an up move. So I close out. Well, then like, okay, either we continue moving through that through that support, or we meander for a while, and then I look back like the next day or 2 days later, and I'm like, wow, it'd be really nice to still have that premium against and took full advantage of letting that position decay into expiry, or at least rolling it to something where maybe I can extract a little bit more premium. So if you capture 60, 80, 80 plus % of the premium that you sold, I mean, I think you've done a good job. But it might be time to just move on to another expiry. And again, like for me, my experience has just been using those deltas just as like that constant like barometer of like, okay, are my long positions in good shape? If they're below 20, they're not healthy anymore, and I'm not going to be in a position of strength, like out of my anchored position, to be able to sell premium against it, or just reminding myself that like those 20 deltas are going to be really hard because my experience has just been they're priced for perfection. So you really have to get a lot to go in your favor for those to actually work for you.
And you were saying, I mean, you're really looking at 30, 35.
Yeah, I mean, usually I'm looking at like 35s on my entry, because I do like to scale in and not take everything in one swoop. I mean, especially like for me, if I build a position that's like I have a thesis that's okay, we're going to move in a direction for 3 weeks. Like I don't want to stop out of the position because my entry was off by 5 points or 10 points or whatever. Like that's not okay for Aaron, because he's scalping he's taking profits at 5 points, and he's taking profits at 10 points. But for me, like that's okay because I'm going directional for 4 to 15 days. But that so I usually start at 35 ish for my entry, or for my original for my initial like core position. And then if it moves down to 30 and I'm still buying like into 30, like I'm okay with that. But as it starts to decay down more to like 25, then I start to like, okay, we really got to reconsider whether this is the right strike I need to be in. Do I either need to roll out, or do I just need to stop out of the position? So again, I've just learned to like let the delta kind of dictate like whether this is a healthy position anymore, and should I stay in that, and try to like we talk about, just try to stay out of the emotion of it, and just let these these dashboard items kind of guide the health of your position, not necessarily your emotion or your pride, your whatever you want to call it, to make sure that a position continues to work for you. So
Yeah, for sure.
I just wanted to jump in and say that this is awesome, and you know, sort of one of the things for a while that me and Smooth did was play a ton of iron condors and stuff for earnings, and but doing it on SPX sort of with a more daily directional view is something that I never really have done. So this has been awesome for me. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I look at the market as where's it going, and I only need to be right for 20, 30 minutes. I don't need to be right for much longer than that. And,
Yeah.
you know, I often have longer term, I guess, market views. And, you know, this is an interesting way for me to explore some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aaron, just thank you so much. I mean, you really provide so much value to, to our room and on a daily basis, and it's great to see some of the tools that you've added to your arsenal to continue to be better. So yeah, thank you so much for all that you do for us.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Robert, so much. I mean, it's obvious you put a lot of thought and preparation into this and didn't just decide to show up tonight and talk about whatever popped into your head. So I hope that you can make these slides available somehow, since we can't record the the screen.
Oh,
And
sure.
other people, I'm sure, would appreciate maybe going back and reviewing it, or having those available as as a resource going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just tell me where to send it or post it, and I can put it anywhere.
Yeah, maybe since Braden handles the recording, maybe he could also kind of take the point on that to get them posted somewhere where everybody could access them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Terrific. Does anybody have any questions at all for Robert before we wrap up? Well, I guess not. So I really appreciate your time and preparation, and for sharing this with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Robert.
All right. Thanks. Yep. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
It's awesome.